Hey guys, quick housekeeping item before we jump into this video. A few weeks back at the St. Jude Classic, I ran a contest where if you guessed the correct player for who would withdraw before the US Open, I gave away a free month of membership to DFSOnDemand.com. I finally went back and went through the entries, so if you guessed Adam Scott, I honored that one. Go back and look at the comment and then shoot me an email. I'll get you set up with a free month. All right, talk to you soon. What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for the Greenbrier, or whatever they're calling it this year. The Old White TPC is the course, and if you remember, 2 years ago, this tournament was washed out due to massive flooding. So our course history is 2017 last year, then 2015, 2014, etc. I believe 2011 was the first year this course was played, so we don't have a full gamut of course history, but we'll be okay for this week. It's going to be a pretty neutral event, a fairly weak field. The course plays about middle of the road in terms of difficulty, and the stats that we're going to talk about later in terms of tour stats are all pretty even. It's kind of your normal stuff. Nothing really jumps out, but there are some interesting traits for this week. It's another par 70, and we've got a lot to do today, so let's not waste any more time and get into it. This is my cheat sheet. So if you follow along every week, this is available on DFS On Demand. And I have a new visual for you, a new tool that we're going to take a look at in just a moment that I've been kind of kicking around for the past couple of weeks. So what do we have here? We've got 6 guys over $10,000 led by Tony Finau and Phil Mickelson. Also Bubba Watson over 11,000. It's pretty interesting. Webb, Russell, Henley, and Xander are the other 3 over 10 grand. And I'm not particularly thrilled to roster any of them in a big way. Let me just show you something really quick. I don't usually do this until later, but I'm going to jump straight to the course history, and I'm going to sort this by finishing position. So here are the past winners. Appleby, Scott Stallings, Jonas Blix, Danny Lee, Xander Schauffele. Xander was Rookie of the Year, but these are no big names here. Then you see, Haas, Bob Estes, Jimmy Walker, Johnston Wagner, Matt Jones, Stephen Bowditch. Like, look at the names that have finished first, second, third, fourth here. They're really, really bad, quite honestly. These are not guys who are in even the top 25 of the official World Golf Rankings, maybe not even the top 50. I mean, a 7th place by Webb is like the best finishing position by kind of like I guess you call it a top player here. It doesn't attract a lot of top players, and the results seem to be pretty wide open. So I'm willing to roster just a lot of different players this week. So let's go through it. If we're going to have to roster one of these top 6 guys, who's the most interesting? Probably Russell Henley, right? 10,400. He's coming in with basically 3 straight top 25s, coming in with a 6th place at the Travelers, and he's got back-to-back 5th place finishes here. Clearly a course that's going to fit his game, and he's playing well. You've got Bubba, who's coming in off of the win, but, you're going to hear all week this narrative that some of these guys own houses here. Like Phil Mickelson owns a house here. I think Bubba has one. Webb Simpson has one. Bubba hasn't really shown up here. Right? I mean, his best finish in any of his last 4 starts is a 13th. If he goes out and gets you a 13th place finish for 11,000, it's probably not worth it. He's probably got to have a top 5 here for you. And he just hasn't put it all together. So I'm willing to probably fade the guy who has already won 3 times on tour this year, and we've benefited from. It just doesn't feel like much of a Bubba Watson week. But Russ Henley's there, and then we always kind of talk about Phil in terms of how well he can score, right? That birdie or better percentage, which will carry his DraftKings scoring, quite honestly. And then Finau, I might like Finau in just like some showdown slates. I don't know what to do with him, right? He's 11,500. He's got 2 really good finishes here in the 2 times that he's played it, but 11,500 for Tony's going to be tough. I'll probably get myself there, so I'll probably lead with Russell. I'll probably then go to Tony Finau, follow it up with a little bit of Phil, and then mostly avoid the Xander, Webb, Bubba trio if necessary. All right, the next tier is probably where it gets the most interesting. So we have Joaquin Niemann, who we've talked about week after week. He's been feast or famine, but this is the type of tournament that this guy can kind of look to get his first PGA Tour win. Not that I'm calling he's going to win this week, but if you look at it, he's been knocking on the door all year long. He's 33-1 to win, and he's coming off a 17th at the Quicken Loans, and he made the cut and finished with the top 30. He's actually played here. So Niemann is a guy that we haven't seen a lot of results for in previous years because he's a young player, but he has played here in the past, which has caught my attention. All right, who else? JB Holmes, I think, is really underpriced. Remember, he was, $10,000 last week at the Quicken Loans, finished 60th, but missed the cut, excuse me. Let me make sure I have the right line here. Yeah, but the 3 starts before that, a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 13th, and then you get this really good course history with a top 10 last year, 3 straight top 25s. That, to me, is a price that's begging us to roster a lot of JB Holmes, and I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to avoid that. All right, who else might stand out here? Just to kind of quickly go through this cheat sheet, because there are a bunch of other tools I want to show you today, so we're not going to spend as much time on the cheat sheet. Where was he? Anirban Lahiri, 2 straight top 13s, coming in hot. Let's see. Danny Lee's a past champion here, and he's been a little bit, again, kind of a GPP player. Kind of running through this quickly because I do want to show you some other stuff. Here's Ryan Blom, 3 straight top 25, 7th place last year. I think he'd be fine. Anybody else that might stand out here before I kind of switch this over? This is like the run of the schedule for David Lingmerth, right? Last week at the Quicken. And then you get, he has pretty good tournament history here, 6th, 16th, and 9th in 3 of the last 4 years, $7,200. His Vegas odds, along with Bill Haas, do not match up with other players in his other peers in his range here. And then see if we can get any real deep values. Robert Streb, the back-to-back second place finishes. If you're a course history guy, you have to play him. I'm more of a recent form guy. I will probably just sprinkle him very, very little, maybe 1 or 2 lineups out of 20. Not very interested. I'll just cascade him. Let's see. Anybody else of note here? Before I flip away from this, what I'm going to do is I'll just sort by average DraftKings points, and you'll get Xander Schauffele, who won it in his only start. That helps your average. Guys that actually have a decent sample size. So here's Keegan, right? So averaging 74 DraftKings points in 5 starts. That's really good. Here's 4 starts for Streb. Talked about him already. Lingmerth, 4 starts. Talked about him already. Jimmy Walker, I guess, could be interesting, right? 66 DraftKings points in 6 starts. Was really hot a few weeks ago. It's kind of cooled off a bit, but still hasn't missed a cut in quite some time. He's only 9,100. That could be a good play. But what I really want to do is I want to get into the meat of my new tools for this week. So I haven't published this on the site as of right now, but this will be available on dfsondemand.com. And it is a couple of things here. I've got 3 different tabs. It's going to be DraftKings points gained, and it is going to be strokes gained. Okay, so these are the new tools that are coming out, and I can adjust this so you can see it. So here's my dashboard. So for those of you who are not familiar with strokes, DraftKings points gained. This is not how many DraftKings points they've scored. That would be stupid. Those are game logs. This is taking the average DraftKings points scored across the entire field and then seeing how many more points a player has scored. So if the average for a week is 50 and a player scores 75, that player gained 25 points on the field. If they scored 25, it's negative 25. I like doing this because it levels the field against itself, right? It's not like guys who only play weak field events or only play really easy courses. That kind of skews their numbers. This levels it. So to kind of give you an idea of what's going on here, and I'll go away. On the left-hand side here is average DraftKings points gained since, I have it since January 1st. You can adjust this range, right? It's only the players in the field. I like January 1st as just kind of like a nice starting point. You can narrow it and make it more recent. On the left-hand side, you have average DraftKings points gained. If you hover over it, you'll see how many starts they have. So Chase Seifert's 1 start. Obviously not nearly as impressive as Phil Mickelson's 10 starts, Bubba Watson's 8 starts, right? So you get all of these really expensive players, and then you get these guys, right? So Keegan is interesting here. Keegan Bradley in his last 13 starts, averaging 15 DraftKings points. We already saw that he has pretty good success here at the Greenbrier in the past. Jimmy Walker, Joaquin Neiman, these guys all pop up. Here's JB Holmes. I bet you if we make this range even smaller, let's call it like April 1st, you're going to start to see some different changes here. Keegan stays there, right? He's been pretty good for a while. Who else jumps up? Like Zach Blair jumps up, but that's only 4 starts. Phil's got 5. Jimmy Walker even better, right? So you can kind of play around with this. I like to kind of stick to a longer term January 1st type of deal. Also, I put what the averages are. So Century Tournament of Champions, that average much higher because it's no cut, right? And those guys go out and kill it. So, the average is going to be much higher. Same with the WGC Mexico. Career Builder is everyone plays 3 rounds. And then, Corrales here, that's a really easy event that they play. So to kind of go down the list, just to kind of show you where this flips over, here's where they start to go negative. So these players are actually losing points on the field, right? And you can tell, unfortunately, it's Steven Bowditch, it's Smiley Kaufman, guys I like. They're pulling up the rear here. But you can see this is you probably don't want guys who are losing DraftKings points to the field every single week. Additionally, I have this little chart here so that you can see this. You can expand this. And you can see I'm not really blocking anybody but Chase Seifert, who I can't imagine we're going to play this week. But now across the bottom, across the x-axis, we have average DraftKings points gained and then the salary. So you can kind of see how this goes. Phil, very expensive, but leading the field in DraftKings points. So you kind of want guys that are further on the right, but lower, right? So Keegan at 8,500 has gained the more DraftKings points per start than Tony Finau has, and he's $3,000 cheaper, right? So this is a pretty good range here, right? Neiman, Walker, Bradley, guys we talked about, Keith Mitchell, Rory Sabatini, they kind of pop off, Brian Harman as well. So that's how I'm reading that chart. If you want more detail on these guys, you can run into this next tab, which is like the points log. So now we've got some guys we want to look at. Excuse me, and it's kind of similar here. So this is just the average again, and I have salaries and starts here. But let's say I want to see Keegan. I want more information about Keegan. I click his name and I can see his logs here. So only the U.S. Open, the Wells Fargo Championship, and the Genesis has he lost DraftKings points to the field since January 1st. That's pretty good. Gained a ton at the Players, gained at the Memorial, another tough track, gained the last time he teed it up at the Travelers. We can also sort this by DraftKings points gained, kind of see who pops off. If we want to look a little closer at Jimmy Walker, it's close, but Jimmy Walker has not lost points on the field since the Arnold Palmer back in March. Pretty good. Keith Mitchell, big birdie maker, a little bit more volatile, but you can see he's up here as well, but he's getting it done in a lot of different ways. Losing 45 points one week, gaining 57 another. That's not as consistent. I would never roster him in a cash game. I'd play him more in GPPs. Brandon Harkins has been pretty good recently. Made the cut with an awesome back nine on Friday last week. Big time birdie maker. We talked about him last week as well. You can see 3 straight tournaments where he's gained at least 21 DraftKings points on the field. Again, you can kind of sort this by whoever's in the field, change the date range, and then I've got that same salary chart here as well. Finally, we'll click over to the last tab here, which is strokes gained. So this will be evolving. Not sure how I want to go with this yet, but here's what I've got for this week. Essentially, I've got it set to the Greenbrier, and I've just got everyone's total strokes gained. So Bill Haas in the all of his starts is gaining, 31 strokes total. I can sort by off the tee. So JB kills it off the tee. I can do strokes gained putting here. So David Hearn out of his mind here. Here's where you get a few more of the, kind of lower tier guys who are just kind of specialists. And then we can just sort by guys who are actually in the field. So here's where you get Henley pops off here. Let's see. Snedeker was actually underpriced based on his Vegas odds, excuse me. And then Keegan Bradley, to see that he has earned 9.4 strokes on the greens here is pretty interesting, because that's not necessarily Keegan's MO. And then I also have it by year, right? So if we do strokes gained total and we just want to see last year, no surprise that Xander's at the top here. He won it, right? That's how this works. So you can kind of go by year, you can hold control, and you can do multiple years. Kind of interesting. And then if you want to compare a few different guys, here's where you can do that with the players. So these are Finau, Mickelson, and Watson, and then just their strokes gained for each one of the 6 categories. And if you want to add another player, let's say I want to add Russell Henley, I'll just hold, let's see if I can do this here. Here we go. Sorry, that was a misclick on my part, but you can, in theory, hold control and select multiple guys, or you can go just through one by one, whichever way you want to go. Here's Russ Henley doing pretty well, and here he is for his entire career, which is these 3 seasons at the Greenbrier. So I think this is really cool. I'm expanding on this. Would love your feedback on it. I'm happy to go in different routes here, but throwing a lot at you here. I understand that. Notice that Russ Henley kept popping off a lot. It's really going to be difficult to avoid him this week. And then let's go to the tour stats like we always do. So this is rapid fire this week, a lot of information to get through, but I think it's valuable. If you're new to this, there's a second tab here for correlation, which is me running a regression model based on the last 8 years of DraftKings scoring and the last 8 years of PGA Tour stats. Now, we only go back to 2011 for the Greenbrier, so that's what we're working off of here. But there were some really interesting ones, stats that don't usually pop off here. Driving accuracy was one. I think this is the only time all year we've seen driving accuracy. Proximity from 100 to 125. I'm not a huge fan of proximity stats, but again, the only time we've seen that this year. Par 5 birdie or better, that's kind of rare. And then par 4 scoring, that's all over the place. We see that basically every par 70. And then strokes gained off the tee popped up. So let's kind of run through these a little bit. Driving accuracy is a percentage of how many fairways you hit. So the higher the number, the better. Russ Henley this year, again, an elite guy. You can see a couple of elite guys here. Ryan Armour, who had a really good week last week if you want to continue with the hot hand. Also, Kevin Streelman faded on the weekend, but it also could continue with the hot hand. Brian Gay's been playing well. So you get some accurate drivers who are playing well right now. There's some real options here. Keegan also always going to show up here. Proximity, this is a measurement, so the shorter the better. So Zach Blair averaging 15 yards from approaches between 15 feet, 100 to 125 yards. You can see here's some more little specialists, right? Ryan Armour pops up again. That he's probably gonna have to make a lot of our lineups because he's only $7,700. He's coming in off a good week last week in which he finished. Let's see if we can find him real quick. 2nd? 5th? What did he finish last week? Somebody call it out if you know. 2nd. So obviously he's going to be interesting at only what, $7,700, and he's already popped up on 2 of our stats here. You can see a lot of these elite guys not showing up in these categories in which the model has determined to be important, which is worth noting, right? And kind of adds to the volatility of what this course brings. Here's where you see the big guys. Par 5 birdie or better, the studs eat up this category. They eat it alive. They eat par 5s alive. Basically, all 5 of your studs are in the top here. Who's not? Oh, no, our boy Russ Henley. That's a shame. Finau crushes them, obviously. Mickelson. And then you get a couple of interesting names like Sam Saunders, Patton Kizzire, and then Keith Mitchell, always a big-time birdie maker. Pat Mayo had a really good note about this in his video this week. I didn't listen to the whole thing yet, but he mentioned that this is kind of like a web.com event where you have to go out and make a ton of birdies and win this thing. It's going to be a really low number that wins it. And that's essentially exactly what happens on the web.com tour. Routinely, you've got to shoot something crazy under par to win over there. Has me a little bit interested in Sam Saunders just based on that. We saw Sam Saunders capable of shooting a 59, capable of going really low on the web.com tour. He's a big-time birdie maker. Hasn't really put it together recently, but if we're looking for that type of player, Sam Saunders fits that mold. Par 4 scoring always shows up on these par 70s, so you can see kind of the same guys here. Joel Dahman shows up. He's been playing well if you want to kind of, again, carry something with a little bit of a hot hand. Kevin Streelman is always here. Abraham Answer played well last week before fading a bit, but these are guys that, they're knocking on the door. They've played well. A top 5 obviously from them would be awesome. Not sure if they can actually go out and win it, but they're showing up quite often. And then strokes gained off the tee. No surprise to see Bubba here. And then you get a couple of names that we haven't seen yet. Kevin Chappell. And then here's JB Holmes, who I just know I'm going to have to play him. It's going to be a shame when I roster JB and he misses the cut, but it looks like a really good number on him this week, especially in this really bad field. All right, and then let's throw it back to the cheat sheet for one last just look at the Vegas odds and see if there's anything that jumps out at us here as far as value goes. So Russ Henley, same odds to win as Phil Mickelson. He's $800 cheaper. Worth noting there. He's 22 to 1 compared to Finau's 20 to 1. That's splitting hairs, and these guys are separated by what, $800. Even Xander Schauffele just a few back off of that. So these top guys are basically all with the same odds to win it, but priced pretty differently. Who else? Snedeker at $8,400 and 40 to 1 to win. That's a discrepancy. Putnam at 7,800 and Bill Haas, and I guess Lingmerth at 72, kind of come out of the 50 to 1s. Abraham Answer, I mentioned before, he's a little bit underpriced at the 66 to 1s. 80 to 1s, those look pretty good. No one really crazy. No one really crazy in the hundreds either, I suppose. Yeah, these all look pretty good from here. So there you go. Let me know what you think about the new tools. They're not even remotely close to done. Still very much in the works. So let me know. Now's your time to get your suggestions in. Tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. Talk to you guys soon. Good luck.